Marianne Williamson has never held elected office.
But the author is a veteran of the presidential campaign trail after running in 2020 as well.
In that cycle, she was candid about the learning curve for a political newcomer. In her second visit to our Candidate Cafe, the Democrat detailed her changing perspective as she gets older.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Marianne Williamson has been speaking out for her beliefs from a young age.
My high school principal did not like me, and he called me a cagey revolutionary. How prescient he was. I'm born in 1952, so, you know, it was the tumult of the 60s. And we published a newspaper, the Underground Watermelon, something that had watermelon in it. And I don't know, it was probably anti-Vietnam War, you know, something of that sort that he was trying to keep the lid on.
That commitment to activism is now tempered by experience.
Somebody told me when I turned 50, 50 is the age past which you don't care what other people think anymore, which I also found to be true. Turning 60, I felt not only do I not care what other people think, I have to say it. At 70, I'm only 71, so I'm only at the beginning. But I feel how different it is, but in a good way. I think a lot of it has to do with your spiritual beliefs. If you're afraid of death, then I guess getting older is really quite horrible. But if you're not, you know, if you have a sense of something more, it's pretty fantastic in a way.
Williamson is on her second presidential campaign after running for the Democratic nomination in 2020.
The first time, it was just a moment of clarity, a moment of, I'm going to run for president. And for about a month, I was just in such clarity about it. This time was very different. I'm no longer naive about what the situation is. So it took me months. I knew I would be running into a burning building, and it is running into a burning building, more than the average American even knows. And I think in ways that would disturb the average American. But I ended up feeling that God would give me some kind of internal fire retardant. And otherwise, I'd spend a year of my life screaming at television. I hope this sounds okay, but I think those who are really involved in politics, for whatever reason, you meet the best and the worst of what humanity has to offer in some way. And I haven't figured that out, but that's what I've seen. I've seen the greatest kindness and people really just wanting to make the world a better place, America a better place, than I've seen people who are the kind of people you weren't brought up to even be around.
She took a break from the trail earlier this year for a joyous life milestone when she became a grandmother for the first time.
I'm very happy for my daughter. She's married to a man, they're in love. He's a good husband, he's a good father, and she's so wild about this baby. If I don't every few hours tell her how gorgeous that last picture was. So I'm thrilled for her, that's number one. My daughter's mother-in-law terms it, she calls it granny gazing. Because I find myself, so I stayed there for a month, and I find myself, I would just stare at her. I said, don't you find that we just, aren't you in awe? Aren't you just looking at her? And, you know, and she said, yeah, it's granny gazing. I said, I don't remember that. I don't remember that from when I had my daughter. And she said, that's because when you have your child, you're too busy. When you have a child, you're just so busy. But when you're the grandparent, I even find that about pictures of her.
Her daughter's family lives in London, which means Williamson is on a plane even more than your average presidential candidate.
This is something that's really changed in America. I used to say I learned most of everything I know on airplanes because you're sitting next to someone that you wouldn't necessarily meet in any other circumstance. They don't know anything about you. They don't have any preconceived notions. And everybody's a little more aware of their mortality than usual. So I would have really, really interesting conversations with people. America has changed. First of all, people sit down, they put in their earphones, they look on their tablet, and another thing people do is they close the shades. The most amazing drama is going on out there. It's called clouds and sky. And nobody, the majority of people now, and so if you're not sitting next to the window, they have no, like, you don't want to look at that. And they put in their, and then something's changed. And now it's like, you say, hi, I'm Marianne. Some people go hi. A lot of people are like, I hope you don't think, you know, they don't say it, but I hope you don't think we're going to talk, you know. I remember one man actually saying to me, good.
Williamson's status as a best-selling author and as the founder of several Southern California nonprofits has put her in the same room as several world-famous people. In her estimation, one truly stands out.
And from writing books and the nonprofits, I have met a lot of celebrity-type people. There's one person in many, many people that I have met who are very famous and blah, blah, blah. You always see in the back of their eye, just in the back of their eye, don't forget who I am. There was one person, and you felt in the back of her eye, please forget who I am. Please forget who I am. And it was almost like, so we can have a normal conversation. One person where you really felt she was really trying, please forget who I am. Guess who it was? Jacqueline Onassis. Because she wanted to edit one of my books, and I met with her, and you just felt, you know, she'd become a book editor. And it makes sense, doesn't it? Because she would feel so trapped. It was more than celebrity. It was global obsession, and you could tell her desire was to have a normal conversation.
And when it comes to conversations, Williamson says she loves these dining room table talks with New Hampshire voters.
You were asking me personal questions here, and it's not just the situation. It's that this is American. We're comfortable with answering personal questions. There are some countries where this would be considered rude and, you know, so I love how real we get as individuals.
Former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson has already spent time in Washington as a congressman and with the DEA and Homeland Security.
He says running for president often produces an unusual reaction on the campaign trail. Some people just don't believe you.
Married for 50 years to a woman he met in college, Hutchinson calls himself a consistent conservative. But this father and grandfather had a wild side when he was young.
How we doing? Great to see you.
When Asa Hutchinson came into this world, his mother put a different first name on his birth certificate.
So my mom, she did not like the name Asa when I was born, because there was a wild Billy Asa somewhere on my dad's side, and so I thought she got over it. But then when I was a young lawyer, I had to have my birth certificate for some reason, and I got it. My first name's William, so it's William blank Hutchinson. She wouldn't put Asa in there, so I actually had to have the birth certificate changed to put Asa back in there.
That's historical.
For a time in Hutchinson's youth, his mom's concern about that supposedly wild name seemed to be on the mark.
You know, I was pretty rebellious as a teenager. It was in the 60s, by the way, and it was but you know, Mom prayed for me faithfully, and that was you know, she gave up. I was the youngest of 6. I still am the youngest of 6. It didn't change. Youngest of 6 children, and my mom and dad were married during the Great Depression. And so by the time we came along, they were really tired of raising kids. And so we raised ourselves a lot. I hitchhiked. That was growing up. But Mom and Dad, they said, boy, we got some trouble here.
Trouble ended up getting elected to Congress in 1996. In fact, the same year, his brother won an even bigger election in Arkansas.
My brother and I was elected to the United States Congress. And my brother was elected to the United States Senate, and it's the only brother combination that was ever elected to the House and Senate simultaneously at the same election. And so it was a proud day for Mom.
When they visited the White House, there happened to be a fellow Arkansas native in the Oval Office, Bill Clinton.
Of course, we've been political adversaries forever. And so we go in there to the White House, and we're going to see the Oval Office, but they said you can't see it because President Clinton is actually in there working. Well, he hears that the Hutchinsons are outside. And so he bounds out of there. You know, in his mind, I know Bill Clinton, he's thinking, if I just spend a little time with them, I'm going to persuade them. And so he spent over an hour, and he takes my mom to his curio case with all the old political buttons. My mom's 80-something, and she peers in there and she says, well, Mr. President, I don't see any Hutchinson buttons in here.
Hutchinson has had a long and varied career in public service, but there was no higher stakes moment than when he was the U.S. Attorney for Arkansas in the 80s and was tapped to negotiate directly with a group of domestic terrorists.
What possessed you and what was your thought process of donning a flak jacket and going into the CSA compound in April of '85?
Well, you know, you do what's needed in the moment, of course, and that was needed in the moment. But that whole case was extraordinary. It was a group of very violent terrorist white supremacists in the hills of northern Arkansas. And you know, that's what lawyers, prosecutors do. We prepare the search warrant, the arrest warrant, and it was a very complicated case, and we were going to we were going to try to arrest him off the property so it wouldn't be a standoff. But then they had the very violent group, the Order, from extreme northwest United States. Some of them came in, and one of them was stopped by Trooper Liniger in Missouri, and Trooper Liniger was shot and killed. And so whenever that happened, all of the national media came in because you had not only the extremist group in northern Arkansas, but you had them coming in from across the country, and all of a sudden James Ellison, the leader of the group, refused to step out of the compound. I made a decision, we got to go ahead and execute this, so we had 200 law enforcement officers, 5 SWAT teams from 5 states, and that's when the FBI called me up there. We're going to need you to assist in negotiation. As I got out of the vehicle, and you know I'm not planning my political future because I'm dressed in a silly white shirt, you know, and I should have been in camouflage if I was really dressing for the future. But I got out of the car and they threw me a bulletproof vest and said, you're going to need this. But it was an extraordinary time with the hostage rescue team.
In all those high-pressure positions, from the Drug Enforcement Agency to Homeland Security after 9/11, Hutchinson says he always kept an even keel.
I mean, people ask me, how can you sleep at night knowing that you'd be responsible when I was at Homeland Security for a terrorist attack if it happened on our soil? Well, I'm a person of faith, I work hard, and I sleep well at night. I also have just joy of people, and that's one of the fun things about campaigning is meeting people.
Good morning, everyone.
Former Vice President Mike Pence made quite a few trips to New Hampshire as a candidate for president, but bowed out shortly after WMUR hosted him at our candidate cafe. He brought his wife Karen with him to have a meal with voters at the airport diner, where they were animated about their shared love of movies. As newlyweds, they would leave movie reviews on their answering machine, and friends would call just for those notes.
I think we all can agree that the greatest movie of all time was The Wizard of Oz.
That's the thing.
No discussion of that at our home.
Okay. His favorite.
But no, we really enjoy it. Sometimes I think movies are there's a verse in the Bible that says about the dreams we all dream. Sometimes I think movies they're a place where we're reminded we have so much more in common than anything that ever divides us. I'll never forget the time that I interviewed Charlton Heston.
Oh, nice.
Well, Indiana has what's called the Heartland Film Festival. It's a wonderful kind of celebration of kind of redeeming, uplifting filmmaking. And Charlton Heston was a guest on my radio show. So I did a little bit of research, and I found out that he starred in Ben-Hur in 1959, which was the year I was born. So I began the interview and said, "You were like a movie star before I was born." And Charlton Heston said to me, Well, Mike, I don't know exactly how to take that. I just went, okay, that was a bad start.
Good morning.
Ron DeSantis was one of the first candidates on the list of people who might beat former President Trump for the GOP nomination. Coming up, how he and his wife balance politics with parenting.
Plus, the grandmotherly advice that shaped one Democrat's political career.
Over the years, the unscripted conversations at Candidate Cafe have led us into real conversations between candidates and their families.
So I asked her out, and she said, well, I can't. I'm your advisor. I said, well, this isn't serious. I mean, you're not just, just evaluating me or supervising me. We can go out. She said, no, that wouldn't be appropriate. So she started trying to set me up with some of her friends, which, and none of them were interesting at all to me. And, but I wore her down.
My wife is incredibly embarrassed that I would say that I like ABBA. Oh, no, nobody likes ABBA. Everybody dislikes ABBA, but they've sold more records than anybody in the history